Before we get into today's episode, don't forget to sign up to the book and the VIP newsletter at thehighestandbestuse.com. For the book, you can get that at Amazon, Chapters, Barnes & Noble, all of these places in paperback, ebook, hardcover, and of course now the Audible version as well. So grab the book, sign up to the VIP newsletter, thehighestandbestuse.com, and now to today's episode.
Hi, I'm Chris Long, and the highest and best use for me is contractor storage yards.
Thanks for tuning into the Highest and Best Use for Real Estate podcast, where we talk techniques to optimize your land structure, skill sets, and time, as well as other highest and best use principles to make your business more profitable, productive, and efficient. I'm your host, Ryan Carr, reminding you that good deals are found, great deals are created. And oh my goodness, I'm so excited for this. We got Chris Long on the show. Super cool bio. Chris worked as a carpenter for 10 years under the guise of Conrad Construction. He started his first self-storage yard in his hometown of Ottawa. Super cool. And he's now headed south of the border to blow up the business. So what's up, man? Good to see you.
Let's do it. Excited to be here. Thanks, Ryan.
Man, it was so cool. So when did we meet? Four years ago? 5 years ago?
It was at a multifamily event, and it probably sounds about right. Yeah, 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah.
And I just love how it unfolded, because I went to that event not really knowing many people, like maybe half a dozen people in that whole market, right? And you and I had bumped into each other, just got to casual conversation, chatting and so on in the hallway. And then here we are, our paths have crossed through a referral, all this time later. So you just never know who you're going to bump into.
Yeah, it's a circle of life. Sometimes, no matter what, whether I'm in Ottawa or I go down to Tampa, I find I'm connecting with the same people. So I could always say sometimes it is a small world.
That's so cool. So today we're going to talk about the massive opportunity behind outdoor self-storage. And you've created this company called LONGYARDS. Why don't you break into it and tell us a little bit about who you are and what is LONGYARDS?
Yeah, great. So basically what LONGYARDS is, to keep it, some people, we're storage for the big stuff. So that's the quickest thing I can make it, because sometimes, it's just hard to get it across. But what we do is contractor yards. So we take land, we sever it up into compounds, and we rent it out. So, you think about a self-storage facility, you go in, you open the lock, you roll up the door. Ours is the same thing, except you open the gate, and we bring you cameras, we bring power, we have lawn boxes, which are pop-up offices and pop-up containers. So you have your inside storage that you need in your yard. And how I founded it was when I was running my construction company, named after my grandfather, Conrad Construction. I had this commercial property, it was close to my house, and I was sitting on it for a while, the thought of it, and actually took a long time to get brave to pull the trigger, but I knew I needed it because I had trailers, equipment in my driveway. And my wife, every time family would come over, she's like, Chris, make the driveway look good, make the garage look good. I got tired of cleaning the place. I was like, you know what? There's got to be a better contractors. It's just like a never-ending thing, materials and equipment. So I was like, how come there's a space that doesn't exist for us? It's kind of like, where's my home? And then I put the two and two together. I'm like, you know what? I got this commercial property, this industrial property. I've got all this equipment. If I'm pretty simple, I think. If I need it, someone else needs it. And sure enough, that was the case. I started off with a small phase, and it was leased up in 6 weeks after, and the rest is history. I knew the light bulb went off then. The first light bulb was I need it. The second light bulb was, wow, it was filled up quick. Third light bulb is just how big this can go. And that's why I'm in where I think the market's the hottest, quite literally, coming from Canada and Florida. And, the opportunity here is massive. There's so much untapped market potential. And so a little bit about me, LONGYARDS, where we are, where we're going.
Awesome. How did this whole thing kind of evolve? So you mentioned you needed storage, you had a contracting yard. How did you acquire that first piece of property, and why did you do it?
Yeah. So it's funny because my brother and I bought this property together in 2017, and we sat on it for a long time. So when we first bought the property, it wasn't directly geared towards LONGYARDS. We had, we wanted to do storage, we wanted to do warehousing. I was always in real estate. So I was buying houses, turning them into duplexes. And then the thought process started to evolve. And then I kind of sat on it for a while because I was like, I'm not sure if this is going to work. And my brother and I, we had to agree. And that was a challenge in itself. So I had to buy my brother out, because if I figured if I'm going all in, and it was actually, there's another layer to that. I mean, we actually agreed to sell it first because we could not agree. And then we had it conditionally sold. And then the buyer, I say thankfully, but unfortunately got into an accident. And he ended up a bike accident. He ended up pulling out of the deal. And then there was that light bulb where I'm like, you know what? It's meant to be. And this is when I sold both my houses, and I bootstrapped this place. I bought my brother out, and I went all in. So A little bit about the story and the journey at the beginning. It was definitely not easy. I couldn't even afford to put the gates on the first set of yards. I had to pre-sell them by the year just to keep bootstrapping and get it going. But yeah, I got a lot of great stories. I could talk about how it evolved and how it started. And it's been a lot of fun even now, just in the thick of it. But yeah, it's definitely been a journey.
Your first actual compound, did you fence it off and cut it up into multiple parcels, or was it really just one big parcel and you're like, hey, I'm going to park my stuff here?
Well, it's funny. I had to get a fence around the place because like the security part, and there was an old house. I couldn't even afford to like fix up the inside of the house. I just made the outside look good enough to make it look secure. And some of my first clients know this, but the cameras at the front, I didn't even have internet. There's like cameras, I had to wait a couple of weeks till that showed up. But, no, it is quite funny. It is, Chris Long Yards, and it is quite literally a long yard. It's 200 feet by 2,000 feet. And the first phase was, just 6 yards, and that was it. And they're all fenced in completely, like I said, except for the gate, which I bootstrapped to get on. And it's funny, just like an original kind of a restaurant theory, I filled up 2 of the yards with my stuff at first, but I didn't even have to. People came, saw it. They're like, wow, I need this. I want it. And then it didn't take long from there.
What are people typically storing?
Well, you got everything. And you think there's like ideal clients that are most, but I just keep getting surprised to this day. I mean, I have corporate clients that are just there for the long term, and these are Hydro Ottawa. And then you have Ultramar. I have, you got little small mom and pops that are hobbyists. You have small businesses, carpenters, arborists, property maintenance. The list just goes on. It's wild just how many people need extra space. And like the world is so catered to inside, self-storage. But if you look at the outside storage market, it's typically like 90% of the conversations about an RV. And if you have a trailer, well, just find a place to park it. But there's really no space that's a dedicated space. And as simple as it is powerful, and it's needed by so many people.
I like the fact that you're outdoor because it's super simple. Like there's no building, there's some gates and a fence, and in your case, some cameras and a little bit of sophistication. But I mean, like, it's a lot less maintenance. There's no build out. Like it's easy.
Well, I went from 2 duplexes, and in Canada and Ottawa, I'm sure you're in Toronto, you deal with tenant laws. Like, first of all, you got the complexity of the tenants, which in my business, in 5 days, our gates automatically lock them out. If their credit card doesn't run, which is an automated process, they're automatically locked out. So you have the simplicity from just the laws on your side. And then the maintenance. I mean, I'm as low CapEx as you think. Like, I'm not a multifamily where I have to worry about putting massive money aside for changing your windows in 5 years for $250,000. Yeah. No, if someone backs up into my gate, first of all, I've gone on a camera and they're paying for it, and I have a deposit. And that's it. So it's simple. It's low maintenance. Now that's, on the surface, you look at a long yard, it's like, wow, this is super simple. But getting the right location and getting it leased up is definitely one of the challenges, finding the right property, the right zoning, and the markets and the submarkets. But the business is sellable. Once the heavy lifting is done, you're coasting pretty good.
Nice. So let's go there. Let's go zoning. So what type of zoning do you need to do something like this?
Well, the most common, language that most listeners will understand is industrial. So, I mean, I would say off the top industrial, but you got to get more granular than that. You got to call the county, you got to call the city, and you got to figure out what zoning codes are they permitting for the usage. And you have to send them requirements of what you're storing, because sometimes they're going to be like, it gets very detailed. So you need to get the zoning codes, and you need to understand the model, and then you need to get that from the county. And then we reverse that, and that's how we go hunting for our parcels. So, it's the zoning kind of, you think industrial, but it's actually not industrial in most cases. It is, it's very driven by the county. And then what we're finding a lot of counties, especially in getting into another layer, is they just make it too complicated for outside storage to begin with. They want complete asphalt, paved, they want roofs. And then we're not even hunting in this area because the feasibility doesn't make sense, right? And that's a great conversation to dive into to the highest and best use. But starting with the zoning, you got to go to the counties, you got to go to the cities.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like in that same vein for highest and best use, like if you're looking at a piece of property and you're saying, okay, I could put 4 stories on this of, some building and some crazy thing with a big build it, make more money and blah, blah, blah. Like that might be an option. But like on the same token, based on the zoning, you could also say highest and best use is keeping it super simple.
And that's what we do. We keep it simple. And what's unique about long yards is our model pops up. Our long boxes literally pop and unpop. Our fencing moves around. We can have a gate that runs off cellular service. So, our permit process is super easy because we just say, hey, everything moves around, which is true. So, but the highest and best use is interesting because I think it depends on time as well. Like we're there's three models with long yards. There's the long yards, there's the real estate, and then you have the financing model on it. And when you think about the real estate, there's a whole land banking side to it. So sometimes it's just good to keep it simple. And then as the city and county evolves and builds out, well, now you're into another layer of highest and best use. And then we just unpack and we go somewhere else, in that case. But, keeping it simple is nice. So once you're in the simple lane, it's kind of like, why make life hard?
Where do you think the money's made here? Do you think it's going to be in the dirt long term as if it were a land banking play? Or do you think it will be almost effectively operating the active business that is the storage facility?
That's a really good question. As I'm evolving myself and going to deeper knowledge of my business, I'm learning there's many layers to that. So in the short term, the real estate. Now the real estate, because you based on the new NOI you're creating in the cap rate, you're just creating instant value. In the longer term, the long yards itself, once it's built out to a certain size, it starts to carry enterprise value. Once you have a certain amount of locations and the cash flow on the EBITDA on an enterprise, especially on a franchise, definitely exceeds a low cap rate. So I think that evolves with the business model, with the most money to be made, and then just the residual income from the model itself. So, and then there, of course, on the financing side, once you start to get private equity, and we can start loaning money to our franchisees, and for any financing side, there's a whole model to be made, and there's so much money to be made. I almost get distracted because just with the long model itself, there's about 14 different ways. I can make money from payment processing fees, from our supplies, from our software. But the three highest would be the real estate, the business, and the enterprise value.
Wow. Now, when you say your cash flow exceeds a low cap rate, what does that mean?
So if you look at an EBITDA on the enterprise value, it's a multiple sometimes from 17 to higher. And then if you look at a net operating income and you divide it by a cap rate to get your commercial value of a property in the multifamily, 5 units above an apartment or self-storage, the EBITDA on the net operating income from your business, when you divide it by the multiplier of an enterprise value, exceeds the value in terms of a lower cap rate, because like a 6 cap rate might mean like an 8-time multiplier, where a 5 cap rate might be like a 12-time multiplier. So there's a bit of a formula that goes, okay, am I super concerned about cash flow because maybe I'm in a B negative location in a certain distance, but then there becomes kind of a pendulum of when that income becomes so high, that snowball of cash flow, well, now my enterprise value starts exceeding, I can get to lower 4 caps, and that becomes really, really unique.
Interesting. It's kind of funny because you're straddling two different businesses there. You're straddling the real estate side, which is valued by cap rate, but then you're straddling the business side, which is valued by multiple.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a lot. Yeah, it's been a great learning curve, but you're right. Absolutely.
That's very cool. Very cool. Whoa. Before we get back to the episode, don't forget to sign up to the VIP newsletter at thehighestandbestuse.com. You get great tips and tricks there, completely free. Also, don't forget to grab a copy of the book at thehighestandbestuse.com, Amazon Chapters, Barnes & Noble, all of these places. That's where you can get it. You can get it in paperback, ebook, hardcover edition, as well as the Audible version too. So if you like to consume content by audio version, grab that. If you like paper, grab it there too. And now back to the episode. Okay, so financing. How do you finance something like this? How do you grow? How did you start? How did you do it?
Well, the first one was I pulled up my work boots and I got to work because no one believed in it and everyone thought I was crazy. So literally, I mean, it was the funniest thing. Now, thankfully, being creative and being a contractor, I was like, okay, I can start this myself. And, being half stubborn and half crazy, I went all in and got it going. Obviously, to scale this, you need to have more systems in play. The good news is that LongYards just got approved by SBA. I'm not sure if you're familiar with SBA.
Is that like a small business loan program in the States?
It's exactly Small Business Association. So I guess the most similar language would be BDC in Canada, very business oriented. However, with SBA, I mean, they sponsor franchises and they kind of merge with them because our whole business model is to support small business. So the language is very in tune and in line. And it's almost crazy. I mean, if you can get approved by SBA, your down payment is between 10 and 15% of the purchase price plus the build out, right? So when you look at a piece of real estate for $1 million, your build out's $1 million, you're coming up with $200,000, for $2 million. And the value add, is ridiculous. So right now we're going into SBA. Now, if we're going into I've done a syndication, and you go into LPs and GPs. You can do different approaches in that case. So every opportunity is a little bit unique on how it's going to get financed, but the bread and butter we're working on leaning on is SBA.
Awesome. So will they look at your business as a business, or will they look at somebody else's income that's buying a franchise as if they were debt servicing it themselves?
A bit of both. SBA is going to rely on the whoever they're looking at basically, and they want to cross collateralize their assets because leveraging so high. So they're going to look at, but they are looking at the debt service coverage ratio on the business to make sure it supports the debt. And our numbers are substantially very high, where I think some of the loans are requiring like a 1.15 to 1.25. Like, it's not uncommon for us to hit mid twos or even threes on our cash. And that's even with royalties as a franchise. And so, I mean, for SBA, it's a little bit more of a process. So we might use cash to close in the short term, and then once SBA comes in, we take out our bridge lender, depending on how we're planning on expanding our acquisition. But to give you an idea for SBA, because they're so high leverage, they definitely want some meat on the bone.
And you say 1.15, 1.2, 1.3. What does that mean?
So basically, after your expenses, your net operating income, there's a formula that they say, what's your debt service ratio, your mortgage payment, and then I don't know all like the internal mechanisms to it, but it's a debt service coverage ratio calculator. Basically, to make sure that you can cover your debt and have enough profits that satisfies the lenders.
Yeah, and it's cool because, I mean, you've proven it out. Like, you can say, look, this is what I did over here, and as long as you buy a property for the right price, and you can basically corroborate whatever rents will be, you can say, well, this is the thing. Like, this is it.
Oh my God. And so I have the story and I have the formula of to say it. Now, good and bad, I mean, I've gone through that, but being a Canadian in the States, they're like, what's that mean? I'm partly starting up from scratch again, and not entirely, because I've proven it and I have so much material and knowledge of my field. But yeah, when it comes to American lenders and even people wanting to visit the location, I don't know why. It's just Canada seems to be like little brother and I'm big brother, and I want to see it here before I take you seriously. So I've had that challenge.
So let's go down the path of location. So buying a property that actually makes economic sense for A, the purchase price, and B, logistical sense for the end user using it for storage. How do you see that?
Great question. A lot of data. We've had to spend a lot of time going into the feasibilities, both on the highest and best use of the real estate. Obviously, there is some real estate that just doesn't work. We can't spend $1 million for 3/4 of an acre in downtown. Like, it has to be on the outside in the main area. Good traffic, good exposure within the main arteries to get to the city as a very high level buy box. And then from the end user, I mean, as long as our marketing strategies are very dialed in, we'll make sure that they know who we are. So, and then going into the feasibility, we need to make sure that what we're spending per acre, that we know we can, satisfy that debt. So there's a lot that we've had to go through to really make sure that these numbers work. But at this point, it's pretty high level, where we have 5 bullet points. And on the phase 1 feasibility, before we submit offers, we know this is going to work. And then we get more granular when it's under contract.
Is there a minimum size you guys need?
Just because we introduced what's called long boxes, long offices, we can drive higher revenues from a more dense location. So before, I would be saying minimum 4 acres, but now we could probably squeeze that to 2.5 and 3 and still make it feasible. But we were looking at properties in Houston that are 25 acres that will support the long yards, because there is, a bit of a formula where you're paying less per acre the larger size you go. And as long as the demographics support it, then we're not going to say no. So we're not shy, but you definitely want to be at least 2.5 acres, and that's on even the shy side.
Can you manage it all from a like a single location? So can you have one person managing the Florida and the Ottawa and the Houston location, or does somebody have to manage that location specifically?
No, so you do need a bit of a hybrid. So like most businesses, you do need boots on the ground. You need someone to walk that facility, and we're very dialed in with our system. So we have checklists that go out, and we make sure that our managers fulfilling the checklist is very transparent between our team. So we could see, if there's there's accountability officers, something doesn't get, completed within a few days, we get a ping as a notification to take action. But no, you need the boots on the ground, and there's no way about that. There's no way around it. It's for quality control, for service. And then as we scale, we realize you need managers to make sure that the boots on the ground are fulfilling their obligations. But to give you a sense, I mean, I've been in Florida for close to a year and a half, and I visited my location 3 times, and it's up and running. So it's
Nice.
once you're up and running.
Your last point on location. So would you say that in the sites that you've evaluated so far, is there a disproportionate increase in purchase price versus rent generated as you go closer to a downtown core?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it favorable or not favorable?
That depends on the location and the rates that you can get for outside storage.
Okay.
So that's very market, that answers market driven.
Mm-hmm. So if you go closer to a downtown core, your purchase price goes up, but your rents go up, but they're not necessarily correlated. Like if rents double, does the purchase price double or not always?
It's not necessarily correlated. Sometimes the ratios are so out of whack that it doesn't make sense. There's definitely a bit of a balance you have to walk on. And then of course you have to factor in your property taxes and all your expenses that are going to be aligned with that. So it's not just the purchase price, it's just your ongoing, and our 2 biggest expenses, especially in Northern, is snow and tax. So we're very mindful of that. But there's, that you just got to be mindful that, again, the feasibility in those numbers are aligning. But the closer you get to the core, the less acreage and the more you're paying. So there is sweet spots on the belt kind of wrapping around within a certain mileage of a main corridor.
Nice. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the during getting into a deal, the before getting into a deal. Let's talk about the during. So your build out, site plans, permits, what does that process look like?
So that process is almost unique. I kind of feel like a politician. I don't have a direct answer for anything after that. Each scenario was a little different because, to give you an example, we're looking at joint venturing, and we're calling people right now that have an existing warehouse and have 3 acres in the back, and we're saying, hey, we'll set up our model. We take care of everything. And, we'll do all the systems management, lease up, and we do a 70-30 split. They get 70%, we get 30. Now, in that case, because they already have the land in the business and it's already prepped, we can be up and running in 90 days. So it's no permits. Now, if you're buying a raw piece of land, then you got to go through civil engineering, curb cuts, approvals, everything else. And so one location we're working on, Winter Cave, it's been 14 months of engineers, and it's just suffering. And, we have to add a sidewalk on the outside. We have to do all this little dancing. So we try to avoid that. And, it's just been the learning curves of going through the business. But ideally you have a warehouse with the zoning, the right approved zoning. And then, hopefully it's not too strict at what the county's requiring you to do on the property. So it's kind of, again, market pending. And, in Texas, it's more like, oh yeah, no problem. But you go to Naples and they're like, it's just so intense that we just avoid it.
Naples is too fancy. They're like, hey, we'll give you a permit for a BMW dealership, but you can't store your contractor truck here.
It's crazy. And you know what? It's like in Naples, they're like, we're kind of like, hey guys, you have HOAs, you have people, you still have contractors doing work. Like we're working with you guys, like help us out. And sometimes it's really hard to get across that. But anyway.
What's the next step in the process? You've acquired a piece of property, you're going through site plan, then what?
So basically, once site plan is done, you hit the ground running with your construction, right? Mm-hmm. And the construction, there's 2 layers. There's the site work. So, think of Longyards as once the crushed stone is down, the blanket's complete. We're a business above the crushed stone. And then we go on, we put in all of our systems. There is some collaboration. We have to run conduits and do prep work to make sure that, we have all the utilities in place. But yeah, after site work, pretty standard, get to construction, and then we do pre-lease up at the same time. Once we're very confident, we waived certain due diligence check milestones in the process of acquisition. We want to start pre-lease up. So we have marketing that's already being preemptive, letting the market know who we are. Half the biggest challenge is re-educating the marketplace, just like on this podcast. It's the same thing, re-educating clients because they don't even know what a Longyards is or what a storage yard is. And as simple as it sounds, sometimes it's not. You got to get that across, because we're so unique to the marketplace as well. So that would be the next phase.
What's the craziest thing you've heard? Some client who's just completely out to lunch.
Oh man. This is rated R. No.
What type of a business can you operate in a Longyards?
Not long ago, we had someone smuggling cars, and the police were involved, and we had to hand over our video recordings. And so, that was kind of the craziest one. And they were there for like 6 days. And then once the police caught wind, they were just smuggling cars from Toronto, funny enough, to Ottawa. And they were shipping them, I think, to like Africa. And, they come all well dressed and sign the lease, and you think everything's great and get the deposit. And, for us, sign the lease, deposit first and last. And that's the barrier to entry, and as long as you did that, you're good, and give us your license. But that was our first experience. So
oh my God.
Yeah. So that was fun.
Are all of these, you mentioned servicing, are all of these slips, are they serviced for like natural gas, hydro, water, sewer, anything like this?
No, we don't need any of that. I mean, some building places will require like an office and with accessibility ramp, and then you have to build that at the front as an entrance. But a lot of markets and zonings, they're just, especially if it's already existing, grandfathered in, good to go. So that's what's beautiful. I mean, we can run off solar lights, right? And we do have offices that we'll bring to the front that hook up to power. But as long as we have power, that's the main really.
Yeah. What makes this so scalable? It sounds like it's really scalable because of the low build out, low simplicity. Like, what makes it so scalable for you guys?
The market demand and the ease of construction and the ease of management. So it's a lot of heavy lifting, and getting the right location is really challenging. But once you figure out a system to get past those two, then you're off to the races. And yeah, if you just think about how big the marketplace is for the product that we have and how fast these can go up, that's why I'm all in.
Gotcha. Is there any part of being a contractor that you actually miss?
Oh man, I was telling my wife this the other day. Being a contractor, you go to a job site, you put up a wall, in 4 hours there's a wall up, and you feel pretty good about it. I've been going in my office for like a year, and I just keep doing research and marketing studies and building out everything, and I'm like, I don't see the progress like I used to see the progress. So I have to get my victories, somewhere else, at the gym or, whatever. So I miss the instant gratification that being a contractor brings. I miss just chatting with the trades and being on the job, and kind of the buffoonery that can go on. And you just you get into that atmosphere where you're seeing the guys, and it's a little fun. Yep. The hustle and bustle. I definitely miss being a contractor, but I'm building a community for contractors like a whole. So I feel like my purpose and mission is allowing me to scale out and to fulfill the purpose on a larger level.
Yeah, for sure. I know what you mean. Like, that visual progress is so cool. You see that thing go up or that wall get painted, and you're like, I did that. And then when you're home in your office, you're like, okay, like I pushed a bunch of paper today. Like, what the heck, man?
I just click on my computer, send emails every day. I'm like, what did I do? I'm like, I'm not seeing it. It's like and every time with my business, it's like onions. There's a layer, there's another layer, there's another layer. I'm like, oh my God, it's just,
jeez.
So it's been fun, but there's so much potential that it makes it worth all the layers.
What perspectives have you had to shift to stay motivated?
That's a very good question. That's probably one of the biggest challenges going from Canada to starting up. It's one of the shifts, staying motivated. I think it is that. It's honestly, it's just been like staying physical and I think hitting the gym and spending time with my daughters and just kind of growing that relationship, because, I have to find my victories elsewhere, because with work, it's so, you don't see them, right? So I have to really win those battles. And the other part is I had to unlearn everything that I learned from being a contractor. It's like you get a lot of your business referrals, word of mouth, and now I'm building an entire business that's a real estate development business, and I'm a franchisor. Yeah. So you've gone from unlearning everything to really pivoting your mindset, and staying motivated has been a real challenge. So I think Steve Jobs says it good. You have to love what you're doing so much that you have to go through the obstacles to stay motivated, because otherwise you'll go crazy.
Do you think if it was taken all away from you tomorrow, you would rebuild it back in the same manner that you've built it thus far?
Yeah, except 100 times faster.
Ooh, how?
Well, I've learned, we've just learned everything. I've spent so much time learning, right? Through the zoning, the market studies, the feasibility. I have it all in my back pocket. I know all the answers now. My avatar, my client, how to target them, everything. So if it was all taken away, I would bounce back on my feet faster.
Yeah. It's such a cool model, man. I'm really impressed. I'm really impressed. I haven't had anybody on the show that's done outdoor specific self-storage, especially in the contractor realm, and going from skilled trades to now providing a periphery service. Like, you're still in the industry, you're still in the market, but in a very different way.
Yeah. And that's what allowed me to grow, because I understand my client the most. And it's not just as simple as like, here's a yard space. It's like, you got to really be able to, find where they are, communicate effectively to them, and get them to understand your model. And being a contractor, it's like I understand all the nuances of what a contractor needs most. And it's not just as simple as a yard. We build a small business community, and everyone there supports one another. And there's many layers inside of it that we do just to really help. And it's giving me a competitive advantage. And it's good and bad, because it's been hard to like change my mindset and grow this way. But coming from those origins, it's been really helpful.
What has been the most difficult thing for you to transition out of, going from contractor mindset to business owner mindset?
Yeah, I've always had that business mindset as a contractor, so I'm not sure if I was always in that contractor mindset, because even as an apprentice, I was doing jobs on the weekend. I was selling software when I was 14. I was knocking on doors selling asphalt all through high school and college. So I always had that kind of mindset of business. So I would say it was actually been more than the mindset of a contractor. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if I can necessarily speak on the experience to say I was in that contractor mindset, because I've always had that business vision to grow something bigger.
Sure. So then if you were in a contractor position today and you had this conversation with yourself and you're like, hey, in 5 years, this is where you're going to be, what do you think you'd be saying?
Oh, man. I don't know. I've never thought about that. That's good.
So it's like the personal introspective side of owning a company and growing, right?
Yeah, no, I like it. I mean, God, I don't even know how to answer that right now, but you're giving me some depth to think about that. Sometimes it's hard to I'm always not upset, but I have such high standards for myself that I'm kind of disappointed that I want to be farther, even as far as I've come. And sometimes it's just as important to look in the rear view mirror and be like, hey man, look where you started, look where you are. You're crushing life, and stop being so hard on yourself. So sometimes just going back to that mindset of you're doing fine, just keep chipping at it every day. You got to be patient in the long term, but hustle in the short term. And that's one mindset I just got to keep reminding myself of.
So let's talk about the exit. So we've talked about the beginning, how did this get started? We've talked about the during, how does the build out happen and all this. Now let's talk about, you'd mentioned enterprise value earlier on in the episode. Let's talk about the exit. What does an exit that's successful look like to you?
Never having to worry about, it's called FU money. That's what a successful exit would be to me. It's I don't have to listen or take any lender's stuff. If I don't like you, don't call me. That's probably the quickest successful, summary of a great exit is when you have that level of money where you do not care or need others' opinions.
For sure.
So I would say over $100 million, if I would put a number on it.
Yeah. That's enterprise value or liquid funds?
No, that'd be enterprise value. And, it's still a way to get there. I'm still a baby, but I'm a baby, I think, giant with a big vision in mind.
For sure. So if you're going to exit, would you want to exit with maintenance, like some form of ownership on it? Does an exit look like a refinance, or how does that look?
Well, you have the exit on the business, and then the real estate is a separate model underneath it. So I can exit LONGYARDS on the EBITDA, but I can have a separate business model for every single piece of real estate under the model. So, I can have multiple exits, how you look at it, because as an example, it's like a beautiful McDonald's model. I can buy real estate and have a franchisee lease on top. He's doing good. He's making cash flow. And now I just do a 10-year triple net lease and keep my life simple. And I sell the real estate, or I just cash flow from it. So you have an exit on the real estate, on the model, and you have, you still own the real estate. So that's the fun part about it. It gets almost playful with opportunity.
I think the land lease model is super cool. I mean, I'm even looking into it in some other areas of real estate, but land leases itself, unless somebody dumps a jug of gasoline or diesel fuel or something on your land, nothing, it doesn't depreciate. Nothing happens. It's just the dirt. You know what I mean? It's super passive. And if LONGYARDS can be built out such that you can debt service the land, well, then that's a W.
Exactly. And that's one of the things we're doing. So now that we're cold calling up to 200 leads a day off market, and we're either doing we want to buy the property, want to joint venture, or we want to lease from them, or convince them on a franchise. So we're giving them different options. And a lot of people just have land, they're not doing anything with it. It's hey, let's make money together. And we have the lenders behind us now that we can spell out very clear expectations. So it's we're very good and quick at problem solving. And we're just getting all that dialed in very, very accurately right now. But, and that's what makes the scalability and the potential so high. If you just think about how much land there is that can work for this model, and how fast it can be built out, it really kind of is unique.
Yeah. What's the big fish here? Is it the enterprise value or is it the real estate value? Which one's worth more?
the enterprise value on Longyards over probably 50 locations.
Yep.
In the long term, but the short term is the real estate.
Interesting. So how many locations do you think you need to get that super successful EBITDA, exit, enterprise value, whatever?
Well, there's a bit of a trend in the business where I think for us, because it's been so much learning and growth and data and feasibility and just understanding everything that we're working on, there's going to be a hockey stick trend, and then we're going to start to launch. And different companies want to buy you at different types of your growth. Yeah. So you got to figure out, okay, what's the total market value of our business and what phase of growth are we at and where we want to be for someone to capitalize on a purchase and on the exit. And it really comes down to just your growth strategies, your human capital. So I think that value there's definitely, once you probably reach like 8, the first phase is going to be the first 8 locations. That's probably, the first one was the hardest, getting it up and going, proving it. Now the next phase is 8 locations, getting them all dialed in, everything else. That's going to be another breakout point. Then 8 to 25 is really going to be, we're going to start seeing that low curve of the hockey stick. And then I do feel like we're going to start getting offers there, but it's probably going to be like 25 to 100, which is going to be the next growth. But even after that, you can have hundreds and hundreds of locations of Longyards. So it kind of comes down to who sees the opportunity and wants to jump on it. But I'm not super focused on the exit because I'm more focused on every day, just making this work and everything. But from what I have been learning and just kind of being preemptive with how we structure things, we're gonna have different vultures coming in, but we're not bleeding. So it's gonna be an opportunity driven decision.
Man, this has been an amazing episode. Just to see your growth going from contractor to now this like really, really successful real estate enterprise value business owner, and to see the trajectory there, and also to like just your idea, keeping it simple, going out there and doing it, bootstrapping, as you say, doing your first one and then growing the hockey stick curve from there. Like I just think it's so impressive. And from this side of the mic, from me to you, it's been really great having you on the show today.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Ryan. I'm a big fan, love everything you're doing, and happy to be on the show. And let's just keep crushing it. And hopefully we'll circle back again in a little while and see where we're at. And
for sure, the follow-up would be great. Where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, beautiful. So, email me directly, clong@longyards.com. You can call me, 941-278-1995. And just go to my website, longyards.com. You'll see us info@longyards, and keep an eye on the email. And I'm always a phone call away if anyone is interested, either investing or has land they think they can work or just wants to get involved with the model. We're happy to entertain the discussion.
There you have it, Chris Long. For anybody who hasn't checked out the book, check out thehighestandbestuse.com to get on the wait list. I'm your host, Ryan Carr, reminding you that good deals are found, great deals are created. Like, share, follow, and subscribe, and we will see you on the next episode.